Hi guys, how are you all today morning? Good morning. Today is 6th July 2022. My name is TSV Raghavan and I live in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. I am a published author with Amazon Kindle and paperback. I write on spiritualism, fiction, and assorted subjects. Spiritualism happens to be my favorite subject. This is my spiritual channel on YouTube, haribol trsv nectar nectar. In this channel, in various videos, we have been contemplating and discussing about information that we gleaned through our contemplation on various topics. In this video, today's video also, we will extend our discussion in this matter. Till now, we know how the spirit soul or the spiritual spark from the spiritual Mahatattva, when gets entangled with the material world, becomes a living entity. Now, in this video, we will talk about how the destiny or karma of a human living entity, that is a spiritual spark embodied in this material world, begins. Karma or destiny is according to the actions of a particular living entity. These actions are because of the individual preferences and inclinations of a particular living entity, along with the 7 stations or phases of life in the living entity's body, or you may call them choices also. The preferences of a living entity are based on the permutation and combination of etheric senses, astral mind of feelings and emotions, causal intelligence, and false ego. I said false ego because there are 3 types of ego as such. The false ego is when the individual human living entity identifies himself or herself with this body. The real ego is when the same person identifies himself or herself with the soul. The super ego is when the same person identifies himself or herself as a part and parcel of the super soul. Ego and super ego are spiritual, but now we are talking only about the material universe and the spiritual spark. So I said false ego. False ego plus causal intelligence plus astral mind of feelings and emotions plus etheric senses make up the total combination of karma of a particular living entity. The actual karma is also based on this person's preference. Some prefer to act according to etheric senses, some astral mind of feelings and emotions, and the third according to their causal intelligence. Even among living entities, one may once act in etheric senses, then astral mind, and then causal intelligence. Such a thing can happen. In some very rare cases, a person who started with causal intelligence falls down to astral mind or etheric senses. But such a thing is very rare because people like to progress further and not to fall down. According to the preference of a living entity, he or she takes up a particular way of doing or completing their ambition or work. This ambition or work is according to seven particular stations in the life of a living entity. These seven stations are also called chakras. Now, the Kundalini is a serpent which is etheric in nature and is invisible to the naked eye. This Kundalini is tightly coiled and is lying dormant at the base of the spinal cord of the living human entity. This Kundalini serpent is knowingly or unknowingly activated by a particular living entity thanks to his or her preference. When he or she does so, this Kundalini serpent gets uncoiled. Thanks to several types of yoga, this serpent begins slithering up the spinal cord of the living entity. These yogas are Kundalini Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Karma Yoga, Tantra Yoga, Mantra Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. Dhyana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga are more spiritual than the others, whereas Jnana Yoga, which is in the Vishuddhi chakra or throat of a human living entity, is partly contemplative and partly meditative. It is so because it is a conduit between the head and the gross body of a particular person. This contemplation and meditation is 75% contemplation and only 25% meditation, whereas when it goes to the head and becomes totally spiritually inclined, it becomes totally meditative and devotional. Now come the other four chakras. Seventh was the Sahasrara Chakra, or we will talk about it later. Now, this Kundalini serpent begins slip slithering through the spinal cord of a human living entity who knowingly or unknowingly performs some yoga to activate it. Now, there are 7 chakras in all in the spinal cord of the human living entity. These 7 are stations for the Kundalini serpent. They are Mool Adhara Chakra, Swadhisthana Chakra, Manipuraka Chakra, Anahata Chakra, Vishuddhi Chakra, Agna Chakra, and Sahasrara Chakra. Depending upon the preference of a living entity and his or her choice, this particular Kundalini serpent stations itself into one of these chakras. Once it is stationed, thanks to the preference of that particular living entity in the permutation and combination of etheric senses, astral mind, causal intelligence, and false ego, that particular living entity concentrates on his or her work in that particular station or chakra, and thus the destiny of that particular living entity begins. We shall talk about it in my next video too. Kindly let me know what you think of my talk on this matter. If you feel that it is okay or it has something wanting, kindly give me your priceless ideas, opinions, thoughts, etc. about this matter. Please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon so that I can keep reminding you of my other videos. Till we meet next time in my next video, it is good morning from TSV Raghavan.